Here in Australia, we seem to trash our own culture and our history and the rest. But Italy, well, it recently elected Giorgia Meloni, who's an impressive right-wing politician, as Prime Minister, and she now wants Italy to become more Italian. In fact, to stop using so many English words and even English pronunciations. So if you're over there, don't say bruschetta, but bruschetta. Joining me is Sky News contributor Caroline Di Russo. Caroline, buongiorno. What is the government actually wanting in this bill that is prepared?
Well, it wants Italians to, preserve their culture, preserve their language. And this bill is designed, they don't want people using English words where there is an Italian word that will suffice, or to mispronounce words. And there's some pretty hefty fines that are associated with non-compliance. But what I really appreciate this bill, Andrew, is this is where Italians do their best work. They do their best work at the intersection of cultural supremacy and total impracticability, right? This here, I don't know how you police this. I don't know how you manage this, but the Italians don't care. They are making a point, and they are very happy with it. So I did have a giggle at this today. But one thing that is interesting.
Well, I sort of gathered. I think. No, I think you're probably right, because I noticed that the Prime Minister herself isn't putting the bill there. Someone else is doing it with her blessing, and there it will probably sit in a coalition, and probably nothing will happen. But if something did happen, what kind of changes are we looking at here?
Well, there's some pretty hefty fines, and it includes things like not using acronyms and not using English words, including in official documentation and official speeches and that sort of thing, which will be very interesting. Now, the Italian language has changed dramatically, and prior really to the 1930s, Italians spoke in dialects. They actually didn't have a standardised language until the 1930s. And in Italy, when they want to study their dialects, their older languages, they actually go to places like Australia and they go to places like the US to study those dialects, because the people who emigrated from Italy to Australia and to the US, they still speak those languages in the cultural vacuum of the 1940s and the 1950s. So when they want to study the purity of language, and particularly their dialects, they go overseas to those older migrant populations. So this is not the first time that we have seen the Italians look to their language as a very important part of their culture. And this for them is, this probably won't get passed and it probably won't be implemented, but they are putting the flag up to essentially say, we want to protect our culture.
Well, it's funny because in France, President Macron has been saying the same sort of thing. No more franglais. He wants French. He wants the. Yep. I mean, they've got this thing about the English and the Americans anyway, but he doesn't want it. And it's a bit of a losing battle, maybe in one sense. But I mean, you often go back or go to Italy. Is that your impression that Italians have been using too much English?
Well, I've definitely noticed it over the course of the year. So I went to Italy the first time in 2000 as a 16-year-old, and I went back last year. And it is something that I have noticed a significant change is over the years, a lot more English words have made their way into the Italian language, and often because they're easier to say. Because often Italian words, when you break down the grammar, you actually have to say about 4 or 5 words to say what we could say in English in one word. And so it's become partially trendy and partially easier to use the English word in place of the Italian word, but it's not proper.
And none of us are going to really be affected when we go to Italy, are we? The worst that could happen is a few fewer signs, like it won't say toilet, for instance, when you're looking around.
Yep. Yeah, it'll say bagno and those sorts of things. I'm sure, look, they for those heavily tourist areas, I imagine they'll still have dual language. But I don't think it's going to impact tourists in a big way. I think it's more of a flag flying exercise than anything else. I don't think you're going to cop a €100 fine if you say bruschetta instead of bruschetta. But it is interesting that the Italians are telling us, please don't culturally misappropriate our language.
Now, I can see straight through you, Caroline Di Russo. You're all in favour of this. I can tell, absolutely tell. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. And grazie.